Hey everyone, welcome back to Donghua Looks Back, where we relive the best moments of Chinese anime together. If you enjoy epic cultivation battles and deep story analysis, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a new episode review. How formidable was Han Li in the early Nascent Soul stage? He drove a mid-stage Nascent Soul female cultivator to develop a strong killing intent. The treasured flame she was so proud of was actually being countered by Han Li's mysterious flame. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, she would have found it truly hard to believe what she was seeing. This person was only at the Nascent Soul stage, yet in the early stage he already possessed so many heaven-defying abilities. If he were allowed to advance to the mid-stage, or even the late stage, wouldn't he be able to dominate the entire Mulan Plains? No one would be his match. At this thought, the woman's expression seemed to sense each other, resonating from above and below. This time, the woman had truly made a ruthless decision. Even if it meant in a single go, using up all the remaining uses of the bronze lamp, she would use them all. She was determined to erase Han Li from the world of Tian Nan cultivators. Han Li also noticed the actions of the woman in the green robe. His heart immediately sank, and he inwardly cursed his bad luck. Finally, a strong urge to retreat arose in him. Although he still had the purple Luo raging fire, the blood devil sword, and other trump cards, but he had not the slightest intention of fighting this woman to the death here. The green-robed woman before him was no ordinary Nascent Soul, mid-stage cultivator. He was unwilling to truly fight to the death with her. Just as this thought formed in Han Li's mind, suddenly, a figure flashed within the sea of fog to the side. Someone had broken in. Upon seeing this person, both Han Li and the woman were startled. But, in that very moment of their distraction, the purple cloud above the woman's head, which was formed from her magic treasure, suddenly split apart. A streak of white light shot towards the bronze lamp with the speed of lightning. The white glow flashed, and in an instant, it swept the lamp into its light. After circling briefly, the white light let out a whistle and shot away from the cloud. Han Li was overjoyed at this sight. As for the green-robed woman, her face instantly turned incredibly pale. Then, an expression of utter shock and fury appeared, and a great swath of white mist swept forward. At the same time, the white lotus beneath her began to spin wildly. In an instant, a mountain-like spiritual pressure surged upwards, but the purple cloud overhead flashed brightly. After bypassing the white light, a large, hazy purple net appeared, descending downwards. Instantly, the purple light, the white glow, and the pursuing figure suddenly collided with each other. From the air came the voice of Yin Yue again. A delicate giggle came from behind the purple net, revealing a radiant face. Revealing Yin Yue, her tall and slender figure, she was smilingly carrying a flower basket in her hand. Inside the ancient fortress, a white light flickered. The bronze drum lamp was trapped within the white light, unable to move in the slightest. As long as she got back and erased the trace of spiritual sense left on the lamp by the woman from Green Mountain, anyone would be able to wield this ancient treasure. At that moment, Han Li was naturally overjoyed as well, but before she could even show her excitement, the person who was stumbling, who had just burst into this place, also saw clearly Han Li and the woman from Green Mountain who were fighting. He immediately turned and shouted in a panic towards Han Li, shouting, "Run quickly, the divine masters of the Mulan tribe are here. Fellow Taoist Lu has already been killed. If we don't leave now, it will be too late." This person was actually the old man surnamed Ma, but at this moment, his hair was disheveled, and one of his arms was missing, a look of utter terror on her face. When the Mulan divine master, Han Li, heard this, she was startled. Just as she was about to ask for more details, the old man was suddenly enveloped in a white light, and prepared to fly away, not daring to linger for even a moment. But at that very moment, a faint male voice followed, saying, "It's too late. I have already found you. You only escaped last time by sacrificing an arm. This time, I'd like to see what other secret techniques you have left to use. You haven't turned your other arm into a substitute puppet as well, have you? If that's truly the case, I would actually be quite impressed. Huh? Isn't that our Mulan's Yuanming lamp? You've got some nerve, little fox. Daring to take the heritage treasure of the Mulan people. Is that something a fiend like you should be touching?" The man's speed was incredible. His voice seemed distant at first, but in the blink of an eye, it was as if he were right beside them, and his last words, tinged with surprise, were uttered as he glanced at the white fox Yu's waist. Then, a streak of silver light shot out from the sea of fog. It didn't seem to be moving fast, but in an instant, it was right in front of Yu. Yu's face turned deathly pale, and she hastily waved her hand. A large purple net materialized out of thin air in front of him. At the same time, his figure shot out without a second thought. But that silver-red light only paused for a moment. Then it immediately transformed into its silver hand. It forcefully grabbed the purple-orange net. At the same time, from a distance of over 100 feet, the silver hand's 5 fingers clenched into a fist. It punched lightly through the void in Yinyu's direction. The yellow escaping light that Yinyu had transformed into was hit by a silver ball of light that appeared out of nowhere. Struck by a blow that, though launched later, arrived first, he immediately let out a pained scream. His escaping light dissipated, and he fell from the sky. But he was also astute. Gritting his teeth, he endured the intense pain and suddenly took the ancient treasure in his hand, transforming it into a streak of white energy, and threw it towards Han Li in the distance, courting death. The man's voice from within the silver hand seemed to have gotten angry. Light flashed. The silver hand split into 2. It actually transformed into another one. As a result, one of them went for the flower basket treasure and shot towards it. In an instant, it seized the flower basket. The other one went directly for the falling Yin. Yue, grabbing at him viciously, it seemed to want to crush him to pieces. Their movements were as swift as a flash of lightning. Yinyu's face turned pale in utter shock. She hurriedly tried to mobilize her spiritual power, to cast an escape art and flee. But a fluorescent light flashed across her body. She was unexpectedly unable to summon the slightest bit of magical power. The opponent's strike from the void had not only heavily injured her, but had also unexpectedly placed upon her a simple, minor restrictive spell. Although it was easy to break, but right now, there was simply no time to do it. She watched as the silver giant hand, like a small mountain, swooped down to grab her. A chill ran down her spine. She closed her beautiful eyes, simply waiting for death. But just at that moment, a clap of thunder resounded behind her. An arm appeared from behind her, and wrapped around her waist, pulling her away. Han Li's cold voice suddenly sounded. Then, the booming sound rose again. Yinyu and Han Li disappeared at the same time. The silver giant hand missed its grab by a hair's breadth. The next moment, with one arm around Yinyu's waist, and the other holding that two-toned, blue and purple greatsword, Han Li reappeared at the edge of the thick fog, over 100 feet away. His face was grim. Thunder escape technique. A surprised voice came from the silver giant hand. Then another silver hand lashed out, destroying it in a flash. The two giant hands collided with each other. A blinding silver light erupted. The brilliant light receded. A cultivator, who looked like Zhang Risheng, appeared within the silver glow. One of his hands was very much, Master Zhang, for your help. But Brother Zhang, how did you come to be here? The woman from Yueshan had lost and now recovered her bronze lamp, and was naturally overjoyed in her heart. He let out a huge sigh of relief and thanked him repeatedly, even if his nature was cold and arrogant. Facing one of the 3 great divine masters of his clan, his expression showed not the slightest hint of disrespect. It's nothing. I just heard that the Tian Nan people sent another batch of cultivators to reinforce the major towns in various places, and the fellow on your side named Chiaku has strangely perished, so I was a little worried, and that's why I came to take a look. It would be best to give those great Jin Nation fellows a reasonable explanation. We can't do without these cultivators right now. However, the enemy actually has someone who can use the thunder escape technique. No wonder even Master Le found it difficult to deal with them. Rusheng said calmly, his expression unchanged. He then turned his head and asked Han Li in the distance indifferently, "Is this little fox yours? Quite bold of it, to even dare touch our Mulan clan's sacred treasure. Since you are its master, then you can go on your way together." "Humph, you talk big. Even if I hadn't taken that bronze lamp, would you have let me go? You want my life. I just wonder if you have what it takes." Are you Sheng's gaze swept over? He took a deep breath, and replied icily upon hearing the words. His gaze swept past Han Li's giant sword. Seeing the 2 types of flames coexisting, after witnessing this strange sight, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes, but he then spoke as if nothing had happened. Hey, a cultivator who dares to speak to me like this. I really haven't seen one in many years. That cultivator over there, with only 1 arm left. I'll leave him to you. This little friend, who knows the thunder escape art, I'll take care of him myself. I wonder how long he can last. A cruel look flashed across Ru Yusheng's face. He didn't seem to use any magical artifacts. After his figure blurred, a fluorescent light flashed on his left and right, and 2 men identical to the scholar appeared. The same clothes, the same expression. The 3 of them looked at Han Li together as if he were a dead man. Han Li gasped. After scanning them with his spiritual sense, he found he couldn't distinguish any difference between the 2 clones and the original body. Their cultivation levels and auras were completely identical. Although he was shocked, Han Li lightly slapped his storage pouch with one hand, quickly whispered something. The creature obediently nodded, having already released the seals within its body. A flash of white light appeared. It revealed its true form as a small fox. With a whoosh, it obediently burrowed into Han Li's sleeve. At this, the 3 Confucian scholars on the other side scoffed. The 3 of them slowly floated towards Han Li, although their movements were slow and unhurried. In just 2 or 3 steps, they were instantly just over 10 zhang away from Han Li. Han Li's expression changed drastically. Without a second thought, silver wings unfurled from his back, and he suddenly vanished. Trying to leave, where can you possibly escape to? The scholar in the middle said with a dark chuckle. Then, a fluorescent light flashed from him and the 2 beside him at the same time. After taking 2 unhurried steps into the void, they also disappeared from that spot. Seeing this scene, the old man, whose face was as pale as a corpse, suddenly leapt up with a strange movement. Without another word, he transformed into a streak of white light, and shot through the air in the opposite direction. Seeing this, the vicious woman sneered coldly. She formed a hand seal with both her hands, and transformed into a gust of clear wind to give chase. With the Divine Master going after Han Li, what did she have to worry about? And as for this Tian Nan, a cultivator, he might not know any lightning escape, but no one can escape from his grasp. As for this great formation, without a Nascent Soul cultivator to break it, it is naturally as easy as turning over his hand for him. The sky was somewhat dim. In a place that looked like a deserted wasteland, a clap of thunder sounded, a silver arc flashed and a figure appeared. With a pale face, he revealed his form. As soon as he steadied himself, he hurriedly glanced behind him. His expression looked somewhat annoyed. Yinyu, how many days have we been fleeing? About 4 days and 4 nights. This person is truly worthy of being a late-stage Nascent Soul cultivator. Master, once you stop to rest for even a few minutes, that man will immediately catch up. Can we really not escape his divine sense lock? This is too dangerous. Although you have the 10,000-year spirit emulsion to support your magic power, the evil warding divine lightning in your body is already running low. Without the divine lightning escape technique, you simply cannot escape the pursuit of his earth-shrinking technique. This kind of profound divine ability is not the least bit inferior to instant teleportation. In fact, in some respects, it is even superior. If my master hadn't been so clever, he didn't engage that person head-on even once. He just kept his head down and fled the entire time. If he had been caught and entangled, I'm afraid it would have been difficult to escape even with the thunder escape technique. Han Li wordly replayed the reason in his mind. A late-stage cultivator's divine sense is more than enough to lock onto any aura within a radius of several hundred li. Although I consider my divine sense far superior to a mid-Nascent Soul cultivator's, but compared to a true late-stage cultivator, there is still a considerable gap. After all, I haven't completely mastered the Great Development technique. There are still several levels of the technique I haven't obtained. Once this trial is over, I'll immediately head to the far west. I must obtain the subsequent incantations. In the past, my divine sense was always stronger than my opponent's, so I never thought much of it. Now that it's weaker than my opponent's, I immediately feel constrained and restricted. There are many techniques I can no longer use. A bitter smile appeared on Han Li's face. He said resentfully, "Then what should we do? Master, even if you use the Blood Shadow escape technique, you can only flee 100 li away. You are still enveloped by his divine sense. You won't be able to shake his lock on." Silver Moon said, full of worrying regarding Han Li's life-saving favor. Although Yinyu didn't say anything, her heart was still quite moved. Her words unconsciously revealed a bit more genuine concern. Once is certainly not enough, but if I use Blood Shadow evasion 2 or 3 times in a row, and then use the remaining evil warding divine lightning to perform thunder evasion, I should have a 70 to 80% chance of shaking him off. However, if I do that, even though I'm an early Nascent Soul cultivator, with deeper magic power than most, losing so much essence blood is still quite risky. Even if I get through it unharmed, it's inevitable that I will be incredibly weak for a very long time. But as things stand now, no other method will allow me to escape alive. I have no choice but to use it. Han Li seemed to have already considered this problem. A faint, self-mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Master, it seems you still wanted to say something. HMPH, that guy is chasing us again. He's getting closer every time. We can't delay any longer. Taking the risk is the only option." Han Li's expression suddenly changed. He raised his head and looked towards the gloomy sky behind him. His face darkened as he muttered to himself. Seeing this, Mingyue, naturally, she said no more. Then, Han Li took a deep breath. The index fingers of both her hands flickered rapidly, forming a series of strange hand seals. At the same time, a clear light flashed around her body. An astonishing amount of spiritual energy suddenly erupted from her. She opened her mouth and spat out a ball of crimson essence blood. It immediately dispersed in the wind, transforming into wisps of blood mist that mixed into the cyan spiritual light. The spiritual light instantly turned into a demonic cyan red glow. At the same time, Han Li's exposed hands and face began to turn an unusual smoky red. In the blink of an eye, they became as red as blood, as if countless threads of blood were about to burst from her skin. It was extremely frightening, but Han Li seemed completely oblivious to this. The hand seals she formed became even faster. She then spat out 2 more mouthfuls of essence blood. Han Li was completely enveloped in the blood mist. Her figure became faint and indistinct. At this moment, a light flickered on the distant horizon. 3 balls of fluorescent light appeared there. They flew over slowly. Figures flickered within them. It was precisely that master of the gods and his 2 avatars. The 3 of them also drifted over like immortals, flying towards Han Li at an unhurried pace. But their speed was astonishing. In the blink of an eye, they crossed a distance of several hundred yards. They could now see Han Li's situation with the naked eye. One of them had a strange expression. His eyes flashed and his brow furrowed. With a soft "fef" sound, the distant green and red blood mist burst open. A ball of blinding bloody light appeared in its place. Han Li was standing perfectly straight within it. He gave a cold glance at the arriving Mulan Divine Masters. With a loud rumble, the wind and thunder wings on his back unfurled. The next moment, the surrounding space distorted. As Han Li's figure blurred, he suddenly vanished from the spot. A piercing screech was soon faintly heard from the distance. In an instant, it became too faint to hear. It was as if he had escaped the vicinity in a flash. The faces of the 3 Confucian scholars simultaneously flashed with astonishment. After exchanging a glance, the 3 suddenly gathered in the center, and after a flash of fluorescent light, the 3 became one person again. The remaining single Confucian scholar immediately closed his eyes and released his divine sense, quickly probing in the direction where the screech had disappeared. He actually got 100 li away. What kind of escaping technique is this? It's somewhat similar to the demonic blood escape, but the distance is just terrifying. The scholar stared at the spot where Han Li had vanished. A trace of surprise appeared on his face. Throughout the chase of the past few days, Han Li had truly given him quite a shock. He could actually flee non-stop until now. You must know, an ordinary early Nascent Soul stage cultivator, even with an evasion technique, would have exhausted their spiritual power long ago, and would have been captured without a fight. It seems he either has a rare treasure that can instantly restore his spiritual power, or he has used some secret technique at a great cost to his vital energy. And for him to possess such a bizarre evasion technique, and only use it now, it seems he wasn't even going all out before. But it doesn't matter. Although he has now fled over 100 li away, he is still within the range of my divine sense. It will just take a bit more time, that's all. The scholar's eyes narrowed coldly. His divine sense locked onto the distant Han Li once again. With a cold smirk on his face, a white light flashed around him, and he was about to give chase again. But just then, the scholar suddenly sensed something. Han Li's aura had bizarrely vanished again. This made his expression freeze for a moment, but he quickly remembered something. He hurriedly doubled the range of his divine sense, and finally found Han Li again. Before the scholar could even manage a cold laugh, Han Li's aura flickered and vanished once more. This time, the scholar looked utterly astonished. He was truly stunned into place. His divine stone, though powerful, could at most cover a range of over 200 li. Beyond this range, although he could vaguely sense general things, he could no longer instantly lock onto a specific person, unless the other person stood still and waited for him to search for them one by one with his divine sense. Of course, that was impossible, and the other party was truly cunning. The moment he realized he was still being tracked by his divine sense, he used that strange corpse-slaying escape art several times, and truly slipped away from his grasp. This caused the Confucian scholar, who for many years had almost never been trifled with like this, to have his face flush red and white. He, a dignified Mulan Divine Master, had actually lost track of an early Nascent Soul cultivator. If word of this were to spread, he would lose an immense amount of face. However, he had no intention of setting off in pursuit immediately, without a lock from his divine sense, and given the other party's strange methods, relying on other secret arts, the hope of catching up was truly slim. Moreover, on this trip out, he had already wasted several days on this person. He couldn't possibly, for such a small chance, continue the pursuit any longer. After all, on their side, divine masters had already been appearing in the heavenly south for several years. The other late Nascent Soul cultivators will not just sit by and do nothing either. He must go back and regroup with the other two. It is best to make some preparations in advance, in case they are ambushed by the enemy's late Nascent Soul cultivators. Then he would be in grave danger. This divine Master Mulan was in a terrible mood. He pondered for a good while, and his expression finally darkened. He turned into a silver-red streak of light and flew back the way he came. In the blink of an eye, he vanished without a trace. 300 li away, Han Li was currently a streak of azure light, fleeing in another direction. Within the escaping light, he continuously took out various kinds of medicinal pills. He took some refined, great vitality replenishing pills, and frantically poured them into his mouth. His face was now deathly pale, and his eyes were dim and lifeless. He looked as if his vital energy was severely depleted. Master, are you all right? Using the blood lore shield 3 times in 1 year was indeed a bit too risky, if it were not for you, Master, desperately consuming so many pills along the way. When you used it for the 3rd time, I am afraid you would have. A concerned voice echoed in Han Li's mind. I am fine, although I have lost a lot of blood essence. Fortunately, I still have some of the pills I refined before. As long as I take the elixir and recuperate properly for several months, my cultivation base will be fully restored. Han Li slowly replied, his voice somewhat weak. Are we going back to Jia City? Hearing Han Li say this, Yin Yue breathed a sigh of relief, but then asked hesitantly, of course not. My condition is so terrible right now. At the very least, I must wait until my cultivation base has recovered. Only then can I return to the 9 nations. Otherwise, that place is full of treacherous people, and I've made a great enemy of the ghostly arrival sect. It would be very easy to be ambushed. I will not take such a risk. Fortunately, I am using an elixir to heal my wounds. I don't need a place with spiritual veins to recuperate. I can just find any deserted place, and go into seclusion for a while first. Besides, my azure bamboo cloud-rending swords are still tainted by those cyan lamp flames. Although I forcefully envelop them with the purple apex heavenly fire, it's still a hidden danger inside my body. I must find a way to remove it. Han Li sighed, and said with resignation, that bronze lamp is an inherited treasure of the Mulan people. Naturally, it has some sinister tricks to it, but Zibai believes that as long as Master spends some time on it, you'll be able to refine it eventually. After all, Master's purple apex heavenly fire is also an extraordinary divine ability. Yin Yue chuckled lightly and comforted Han Li with a few words. Things have already come to this point. We can only find a way to solve it slowly. Han Li gave a bitter smile, and replied noncommittally in the end. Han Li stopped wasting words. He channeled the remaining spiritual power in his body with an incantation. The blue and red light shot into the distance. There were no traces of cultivators or mages. This put him more at ease. With a flick of his elegant robe, he released Yin Yue, and gave an order to the one transformed from music. Without a second word, Zihuo acted. Its body spun around. A yellow radiance suddenly erupted, instantly enveloping Han Li within it. Then, after a flash of brilliant light, it carried Han Li directly into the mountain wall on one side. Not a soul was left in the gully. Han Li was brought by Yin Yue using an earth escape technique to the center of the mountain's interior. Countless threads of azure sword shot out densely, quickly carving out a room several yards wide. A simple and crude stone chamber. With a flash of his figure, Han Li entered it, and sat down cross-legged. Before long, Han Li's eyes were tightly shut. A golden light flowed around his body. In front of him were more than 10 medicine vials of various sizes. He first had to refine the medicinal pills he had taken during the crisis, before he dared to consume any other pills. And so, Han Li quietly entered seclusion inside the mountain, and began to recover his vital energy. But what Han Li hadn't expected was the severity of his vital energy loss. Far exceeded his original predictions. The time he would spend recuperating would naturally be much longer. Time slowly passed by in tedious and boring meditation. Before he knew it, half a year had gone by. Han Li was still in seclusion within the mountain and had not yet emerged. However, the outside world was in great turmoil and ever-changing. The life-or-death war between the cultivators and the mages was on the verge of breaking out. What was even more unexpected to him was that the great name of Elder Han of the Drifting Cloud sect, at this moment, whether in the Heavenly South cultivation world or among the mage army, was already extremely famous. Any high-level cultivator or mage, upon hearing his name, would immediately associate it with the divine powers of a mid-Nascent Soul cultivator and his strength, not daring to have the slightest thought of underestimation. And all of this had happened in just this half a year. After the battle at Yellow Dragon Mountain that day, With the three great divine masters of the mages leading the charge, the mage army spent only half a month to launch a surprise advance to Heavenly Celestial City. The Nine Nations Alliance was caught completely off guard. In their shock and fury, they could only hastily set up camp. Fortunately, the great elder of the alliance, Wei Wuya, one of the three great cultivators of the Heavenly South, had just heard the news and rushed to the city. Relying on the defensive formations of Heavenly Celestial City, the Great Formation also, under the fierce assault of the Mage army, held on for over 1 month, but the three great divine masters finally gathered, and with the help of some black-robed cultivators, they unleashed at once 7 or 8 enormous beasts. As a result, it was not long before the Great Formation was broken. Tian Nan City fell into the hands of the mages, but fortunately, the main forces of the Nine Nations Alliance were largely unharmed. They hastily and preemptively moved all the cultivators, retreating to the neighboring Baoyang state. And at this time, the righteous and demonic paths, and the reinforcement cultivators from the Heavenly Tao Alliance also arrived in the Heavenly South. The 4 major powers joined forces, and after several small-scale battles, they temporarily held back the brunt of the Mulan's attack. But both sides knew very well, the true, decisive war of life and death had not yet begun. After the Mulans occupied Tian Nan City, they immediately turned it into the Mages' first stronghold in the Heavenly South. From the Mulan steppes, a continuous stream of various tribes, Mage allied forces arrived, apart from the Mulan's largest tribe, the Golden Sun tribe, which was monitoring the two Wo people's movements and could not spare any forces. The remaining tribes sent out all their elites. They pinned all their hopes on conquering in one great battle the lands of the Heavenly South. The Mulans were just waiting for all the allied forces to assemble, and launched a life or death battle. The Tian Nan side, facing a change in their territory situation, naturally would not show any weakness. In addition to the 4 major powers mobilizing all their forces, some sects from outside the 4 major powers also sent people to join the war. Even some independent cultivators knew that this battle was no small matter. It even touched upon the fundamental issue of their very foothold in Tian Nan. Without needing to be mobilized, they voluntarily rushed to join the battle. The 4 major powers saw that the people's hearts were with them, and immediately, at the border of the northern Liang country near the state of Yu, they unleashed a great divine ability. Overnight, they constructed a massive stone city to serve as a temporary stronghold against the mages. They also needed to prepare and organize the manpower from the various sects and independent cultivators before they could launch an all-out war to drive the Mulan people out of Tian Nan. The fighting between the mages and the cultivators temporarily ceased. It was like the calm before a storm. For a time, both sides appeared exceptionally peaceful. It was during this period that Han Li, as word of certain events began to spread, experienced a great rise in his fame. He did not know that on that day at Yellow Dragon Mountain, the Nascent Soul cultivators who survived the Dark Sea included not just him, but also Elder Modden. It was just that this elder of the Grand Righteousness sect, faced with the Yue woman's wind escape technique, he could only abandon his physical body, with only his nascent soul escaping back to the Nine Nations Alliance. Besides the old man, the Wise Core Formation cultivator and the Morong brothers saw that things were turning bad, and also escaped ahead of time, returning safely. As a result, the fact that Han Li had instantly killed the black-robed Nascent Soul became known to others. His fame rose sharply. As for him, the big man surnamed Lu, and the others, capturing the spy from the Jade Forest sect, and personally finishing him off. Only the high-level cultivators of the major powers knew about it. It was known that this was not spread to outsiders. But what truly made Han Li's reputation soar, besides this incident, was the news that came from the Mulan people. The news that Han Li had escaped from the hands of a Mulan Divine Master when the scholar returned to the Spell Master army that day. Having failed to kill Han Li, it truly caused quite a stir among the Spell Masters. In order not to lose too much face, the scholar naturally gave Han Li a very high evaluation. He said that Han Li's divine abilities were even slightly superior to an ordinary mid-nascent soul stage cultivator. With the Divine Master evaluating Han Li like this, of course, no one doubted the truth of his words. In addition, during Han Li's fight with the Yue woman, the various divine abilities he displayed, and especially back on the Mulan grassland, he destroyed the physical body of the Mu-surnamed Mage from the Tanfeng tribe, and his reputation among the Mage army was even more renowned than it was among the cultivators. As a result, after the Tian Nan side learned of this matter, it immediately caused another sensation. Han Li's reputation grew once again. Of course, besides Han Li, some other originally obscure cultivators also became famous during their battles with the Mage army. After all, it is only in magical combat that one can see a cultivator's true extent of their divine abilities, and it was under these circumstances that Han Li, who had been in secluded cultivation for over half a year, fully restored his vital energy in a mountain ravine somewhere in the Yu Kingdom, finally emerged from the secret chamber inside the mountain,